1st Platoon. Hard drop. Secure our landing zone.
Understood.
Over the target in 5.
Hang on to your helmet.
Alright, recruits, for this video we are going to go ahead and cover movement speed and all of the different things that can affect it. So let's go ahead and dive on in. So the very first thing that's going to affect your movement speed the absolute most is what type of armor you have on. So if we look here in the armor section, you can see it's broken up into 3 categories. There is light armor, medium armor, and heavy armor. And you can see from the stats tab here that each of these types of armor in general have the same amount of stats. You can see this particular heavy armor has extra padding to add extra armor, but the speed and stamina regen are going to be the same. Now, this is not true for every piece of armor in that category. For instance, the CE67 Titan has a slightly different armor rating, speed, and stamina regen from other armors. Ever so slightly, it's a little bit of an in-between between light and medium armor, which is pretty interesting, I would say. But for the most part, this is going to be the standard. Is light armor has a slightly boosted movement speed and increased stamina regen, while you have half of the armor of the medium armor counterparts. So for medium armor, we have 100 armor rating standard, 500 speed, 100 stamina regen, and then the heavy armor variants in general are going to have extra armor at 150, but a penalty to both speed and stamina regen. And when you're in game, you are going to feel this. So real quick, I'm going to hop into game with medium armor just to show you what the default setting is. Alright guys, I'm in the game. I have medium armor on, and as you can see, this is me walking. This is me moving forward without sprinting right here. See how long that takes. And then with sprinting, this is how long it's going to take. Now you can note, while I am sprinting, we have a stamina bar at the bottom that is slowly going down. And it will recover when I stand still or begin walking without sprinting. Now there are a couple of other things that impact your movement speed, but we will dive into those in a little bit. First I'm going to go ahead and switch over to light armor just to show you guys what that looks like. Alright, so we are in the game now with a light set of armor, and this is me normally just walking, no sprinting. See how long it takes to get there. And then with sprinting, and you can see I am much faster than in the medium armor counterpart, which is why I like light armor most of the time over all the other armors. It just gets you from one objective to the other pretty quick. There are exceptions to this rule. Sometimes against specific enemy types or particular missions you really don't need movement speed, or you really need that armor. We'll cover that all when we get to the factions and mission types and also the armor videos. For now, we're going to go ahead and just hop over to the heavy armor now, just to showcase what that movement speed is like. Alright guys, we are back in the game with some heavy armor on now. And this is me walking, and then me running without sprinting. And as you can see, it is quite slow. And this is me with sprint. You can see the stamina bar is draining pretty quickly, and I'm really not moving too fast. That is the effects of heavy armor on your movement speed. And now we're going to go back to medium armor to cover all of the other things that can affect your movement speed. So let's hop over there now. Alright guys, we are actually back here at the loadout menu, and as you can see I've got the medium armor on with all this. There is one more thing that will affect your movement speed and stamina access pretty well. There are boosters that will affect your movement speed. So as you can see from this booster, it makes you reduce in damage and stuff, but it's this stamina enhancement that is really key to zipping around the map. You will have a larger stamina pool and also recover your stamina quite a bit. And whenever someone activates a booster, it affects the entire team, and each of you gets to pick one booster. So a full squad of 4 gets 4 boosters in total, and a lot of times people use those to synergize pretty well. Usually someone has one of these and one of these and a couple other different things. But there are a couple other boosters that will affect your movement speed. As you can see here, we've got the muscle enhancement that allows Helldivers to traverse difficult terrain with ease. And this isn't a very commonly picked booster, but essentially what it allows you to do is you can walk through bushes or in water a bit faster with this muscle enhancement, so difficult terrain doesn't affect you as much, which is pretty useful. And then there is maybe 1 or 2 more things, like the motivational shocks. Allows Helldivers to recover faster after being slowed by an attack, such as acid. It does not, however, mitigate any of the area effects things like EMS strikes, which is a huge letdown. If this did make your team immune to EMS strikes, I think this would be a greatly overpowered booster, honestly. And we can get into EMS a little bit later and what that exactly does. Basically a stun round that slows you by maybe 90% or so. And I do think there is perhaps 1 or 2 more. We have the dead sprint right here, which allows Helldivers to keep sprinting even when they don't have any stamina, but it begins draining their health instead, which could be really useful. Sometimes it is much better to not get shot at than it is to take more hits. And the last one right here is the experimental infusion. In addition to restoring health, stims temporarily increase your movement speed and damage reduction. So it's a super booster for your stims, which is a fantastic booster. I would encourage everyone to at least experiment around with each of the boosters as you unlock them. I think when you start the game you either have no booster, or the first booster that's available is the Vitality, followed by the Stamina Enhancement. But as you unlock more war bonds and progress further in the war bonds, you may find more boosters. Just go ahead and try these out. I think I've done a good job describing them here, but you won't really know the effect and feel it until you are playing with it. So just keep that all in mind. For the rest of this video, I'm just going to go ahead with the Vitality enhancement so you guys can see what this is like with no boosters. And that should give a much better picture of movement speed in this game. Just keep in mind, if you have different boosters on, you may have better results with movement speed and sprinting. Alright, so let's get into the actual game and start digging around some of these more intricate movement things. Alright, So a little bit earlier we did cover for very briefly sprinting in this game, but I do want to show you what ends up happening when you are completely out of stamina and how it affects your movement speed and a couple of tips and tricks about it. So we're just going to run around in place for a bit until stamina runs out. Didn't take too long. And now, as you can see, I still am trying to sprint. My stamina is completely out, and you can see that my movement speed has been tremendously affected. Now, while I'm doing all of this, what you can do in order to get your stamina back is to try to stop sprinting, and you'll see your stamina will start recovering. Then you can sprint again, and it'll start draining again. But there is actually a faster way, is if you use one of your stims that is usually used for healing, and for me on the Xbox controller that is up on the D-pad, it's a stim, you can see my stamina immediately got all the way up from the stim, and that lasted for a little bit of time. And then, after a little while, the stim wears off, I begin draining stamina again. So that's a nice little tip there for you guys. If you are trying to run a marathon, feel free to use some of your stims, even if your health is at full. It will allow you to keep sprinting for quite a bit longer, which could be the difference maker between life and death. Okay. So a couple more things about this game. We have movement speed normally while walking. You can also crouch in this game, and you can see it's almost comparable, though slightly slower. And if we hold the B button down instead of just tap it, you can see that we are now crawling. Now this is huge for stealth. You're going to make a lot less noise. You're going to be able to hide behind boxes and whatnot. Roll around pretty interestingly. You can see when we're aimed, we cannot move at all. This is true when you are, well, actually only true when you're on the ground. When you're crouched, you can aim and move, and you can do that as well while you're standing, which is pretty nice. So those are a couple of different things. That's crouching, crawling, and diving. Sorry about that, guys. We were so rudely interrupted by a bunch of bugs. There is one thing I forgot to mention, is if you double tap the B button, you will do a dive and fall prone, and then you can crawl after that. Now, this has a couple of different uses. For instance, you can dive all the way over for some cover. You can also make a couple of different kind of leaps from one object to another. I don't think I have any good examples here, but the higher you are, the better your dive is going to be. And you can, while falling off of things, take quite a bit of damage, which is probably the downside. As you can see, I ragdolled a bit from diving from great height. There is also, in this game, very conveniently, a clamber feature. If you hold down the A button, you can clamber on top of objects. It is very limited. For instance, I can clamber onto this, but I cannot clamber up something that high. So in general, if it's below your shoulders, you are fine to clamber over that. If it is above your shoulders, you're probably not going to be able to get up on it. Additionally, there is a setting, which I think is on by default, where if you're sprinting, you will automatically clamber on top of stuff. And oh boy, I'm going to have to kill some stuff. I'll be right back. So next up, I do want to talk about a couple of terrain things that can happen. As you can see here, we've got some flora here, and it's whatever it is. But these bushes that you are just as tall as, you can see when I sprint into them, they are going to slow me down. Now they do provide a little bit of cover, which is nice, but they do slow you down. You can hop over them, however, with the dive, which could be very useful if you encounter a giant field of things and you're trying to avoid it. You also may encounter some other environmental issues along the way. On snowy maps, they're... oh my goodness. On snowy maps, there's very deep snow, which you can get stuck in, which slows you down quite a bit. Maps that have lots of water, they can also slow you down and dredge through. And very iconic Halo. If you get into the water and it's too deep, you will almost instantaneously begin drowning. You will die in about 2.5 seconds while you're in the water. Very, very Halo. So keep that in mind. Avoid large bodies of water at all costs. If you value your life, you can swim for very, very few seconds before drowning. Alright guys, it took me an obscene amount of time trying to get just a leg injury. So I could show you guys, this is what happens when you have a leg injury. Just walking with no sprinting, and then this is with the attempted sprint. It completely disables your sprint, makes you feel like you're dying, and makes you pretty slow. But with one simple stem, all of that goes away. So also bear in mind, if you get ragdolled all around and you look pretty beaten up and you're moving pretty slow, check at the bottom to see if you have that little injury icon on your leg. That is most likely the culprit. Alright. That is it for leg injuries, guys. Alright guys, now we are going to talk about a couple of different backpack items that can drastically affect your movement speed. The first one is the jump pack, and as you can see while sprinting, if I hold down the A button, I activate my backpack, which allows me to jump pretty far. Now this is from sprinting. If I'm standing perfectly still, it has a more vertical take. See, I got much higher and not quite as far of movement speed. So, if I'm just standing here, and you can see at the bottom left, my backpack needed time to recharge before able to use it again. That is from dead standing, and you saw when I took off from sprinting, it was pretty far in distance. It's very fast, it's a very mobile thing. It also allows you to reach heights that you weren't able to before. Now we're going to go to the hover pack, which is a little bit different. As you can see, it takes me straight up in the air, much higher than the other one, but I am a sitting duck up there. Against bugs, this is very good. They can't reach you, and they're all going to try to melee attack you, so it's actually very beneficial. You get out of reach. But against anything that can shoot you, you just sit up in the air for all to see, surrounded by everyone, and you're kind of a sitting duck. So it actually hinders your movement. Actually, it's a bit slower than if you were sprinting. So just keep that in mind. There is a huge difference between the jump pack and the hover pack. Now, this latest Warbond that we got came with the warp pack, and it is a nice little teleporting device. So as you can imagine, it is going to be pretty good with movement speed. It also makes a bit of an explosion when you jump in. can damage things nearby. And if you're checking the backpack slot on the bottom left, it does have a pretty decent recovery time. And in fact, when you jump with it, it doesn't immediately deteriorate. It actually has a couple more charges, but it's kind of a risky item to be using. I'll show you what happens if you use it back to back to back. You're going to get hurt, and then eventually it will just blow you up. So you can get 3 uses back to back to back, but you will most likely not survive it. So just keep that in mind as well. We are not done with the warp pack, but I think I just blew mine up. Yes, this is... Nope, I think it is blown up. So here in a second I will get it back, and I will show you a couple of other neat features about the warp pack. Alright, so I got a warp pack again, and I want to show you something kind of cool. You can use it to teleport through walls, which is super convenient, very useful. And you can also do a couple of tricks. So I probably can't clamber up there, but I think I can warp pack up to it, which I think is phenomenal. Let's see, we can even do some of that teleporting around. Yep, I can even make it over here once I'm down here. And yep. Yeah. Me on fire because I used it too often. It is a dangerous item, but it is a fun item. It's pretty interesting. You can absolutely kill your teammates with it, so be careful of that as well. There is one more support item that we can talk about for movement speed, and that is the Fast Recon Vehicle, or FRV for short. Which, Halo fans rejoice, this is essentially the Warthog, but with a couple of caveats. So it doesn't handle as well as the Warthog from Halo. It is a bit of a crazy vehicle, actually. It's kind of flat.
Helldiver, you are moving outside the mission
It has some
area.
crazy... It is basically drifting all the time, is what a lot of us have noticed. And it is very... not great with terrain. Now there are a couple other things about this that are pretty interesting.
20 minutes remaining.
There are 4 seats including the driver, and while you are a passenger of this, if you hold the left trigger to aim, you can shoot out of it. So if you have teammates, you can have them shooting out, and they can in fact switch to whatever weapons they want, and even call in ordnances. It's very nice.
Orbital strike incoming.
Could be very nice. Now, additionally, if you just tap the A button, you can get in and out of the vehicle. I think there's a way that you can switch seats. But there is also, I'm sure a lot of you have noticed, a giant turret on the back of this vehicle. And it indeed is that. So if we hop out of here, you can essentially have a full party in this vehicle. You have 1 driver, 3 passengers inside, or 1 person on the back. The machine gun is not infinite ammo. You will need to reload it. As such, it does take quite a bit of time to reload, and you only have 5 mags total, including the one that's already in there. So keep all of that in mind as you're using this. It is not the same as the Warthog, but it is very similar. Very happy that this came in. Again, best Halo game in the last 10 years. This is a very fun vehicle, but it can cause some comedic horribleness. So just keep that in mind. Very great for traversing the map. Alright guys, I think that is everything I've got for movement speed, other than the environmental effects. I wasn't able to find those very easily, but just keep in mind there are a couple of different environments in the game. Occasionally in the winter biome there will be a blizzard, which will slow you down quite a bit. Couple things like that. So just keep that in mind. The environment may also affect your movement speed, as well as attacks from acid oftentimes will slow you down as well. Alright, that is all I got for this one, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of From ODST to Helldiver. If you found any of the information in this video useful, please go ahead and leave a like. And if you have any questions about anything, you want some clarification, or maybe you want to sync up in-game, go ahead and leave a comment down below, and maybe I can add you. We can get a couple of games together. And if you want to see a couple of more videos like this, why don't you go ahead and subscribe? That would really, really be appreciated. And hopefully this video gets you guys a little bit more prepared for when this inevitably drops on the Xbox. I hope everybody watching sees so many similarities between the Helldivers and the ODSTs. They're pretty much doing all of the same things. And I do find this game is, without a doubt, one of the greatest Halo games in the last 10 years. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.